So the idea was we saw, multiple reports of changes in the bike share use in New York City during the pandemic in March. And then, it was both, you'd hear about less usage, but then you'd hear about increased usage. Subways, ridership plummeted by 90% or so. So the idea was to let's see what these changes look like, compare it to the prior year, and then maybe even track them further. So as things reopen. So the data, correct me if I got this wrong, hang on, it goes up to the end of June. So we had a bit of the reopening in New York City, and but there's potential to see what happens over the next few months also. So that's basically it. I'll let Haoyun say more.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My talk is Bikeshare and subway ridership changes during the pandemic in New York City. I was doing a direct study with Professor Robert Nolan, and happy to have you here. I'm finished up my dual degree of MCRP and MPI at Bloustein School. Here is an introduction of myself. I received my bachelor's degree from China, and I'm finished up my master's degree from Bloustein School. My research interests are GIS applications, big data analytics, transportation planning, mostly backpack planning, and travel behavior modeling. I'm proficient in using ArcGIS, Tableau, Stata, and R. And I also know SPSS and Python and other design softwares. While at Bloustein School, I did my intern at New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, and currently I'm working as an intern at the Rutgers Urban and Civic Informatics Lab. Feel free to contact me by this email. So before my talk, I have one question for you guys. How does the pandemic impact your travel? Do you travel more or less? Do you drive in more or less? Do you walk back or take transit or car sharing? You can type your answers in the chat room or unmute yourself to give some response.
Okay, so this is Inchen, and I live in the New Brunswick downtown, and I don't have a car. So after the pandemic, I would say like I have no travel at all, like stop all the travelings, because I don't have a car, and I'm not like I feel using NJ Transit or Uber is a kind of like unsafe. So yeah, so I feel the summer is so boring. I just stay at my apartment. That's all.
I totally agree with you. I was living close to. I was living in downtown New Brunswick during the pandemic. I see some answers in the chat room. Courtney said she walk more and less car sharing, and Prissy also indicates she walk more, and Courtney reduced a lot of travel. Michael Simon, much less travel. Yes, it's easily observed that people travel less and may change their travel habits. So this is the research topic of my direct study. I want to share my personal story. I had a bag and a car while living in downtown New Brunswick. During the pandemic, I seldom walk, but I rode my bag, went out for a while, took some breaks and exercise. And these photos were taken along the Raritan River. And the photo in the left corner was taken in Johnson's Park. I'm an advocate for bicycling, and due to my work experience at the New Jersey Bike Test Center, I love bicycling more. So what is going on in New York City? News says that people are buying bikes, and it is reported that people may need to wait for a long time to buy a bag at a store. New York City has a comprehensive Bikeshare system, CityBike. It data every month. On the right is a map. It's a real-time map at 10 p.m. The red color indicates that few bags available at the docking station, and green color means that there are bags at the station. From the map, we can see that New York City CityBike docking stations covers a large portion of Manhattan and some parts of Bronx and Brooklyn. Before doing my Turk study, I did data visualization for this project. I acquired the data from the CityBike company. The data includes trip duration, start time and date, stop time and date, start station, end station, and user type, gender, and age. As the gender and age are self-reported, so this information may not be reliable. And this is big data because it's almost millions of records for 1 year. I published an interactive dashboard. I'm going to show you now. This dashboard was published by Tableau. Can you see the Tableau dashboard now? On the first page is the main dashboard. In the map, it's a density map. By hovering on the dot, we can see the start station and the number of trips in that station. In the bottom is a line chart showing the association between the COVID-19 pandemic and CityBike ridership. It is easily observed that in the middle of March, since the effect of stay-at-home order, there was a big drop in CityBike ridership. Then it gradually recovered in late April. And this shows the trips patterns in 19 and 20. One advantage of the Tableau dashboard is that it is very interactive. You can click on the lines or the dots to see the numbers. The third dashboard is to investigate the user profile. There are more males than females riding CityBikes, and more subscribers than casual users. People reduced their trip durations during the pandemic. The last dashboard is to investigate the top 10 pickup stations and the top 10 return stations. Most of them are concentrated in downtown Manhattan and middle Manhattan. We can also check the year to see how it changes. I also did data visualization using Tableau.gl, which is strongly recommended by Gavin. And the list, it is also very interactive. You can play around, play with it. It's a 3D mapping data visualization. And the list is a hot map, shows where the trips generate. We can see like it's near the transit station, like Times Square and Port Authority. This shows the individual trips between the start station and the stop station. For example, hovering on this line, we can see the start station name and end station's name, and the start time and stop time. This for this, I only use the March data because the data volume is too large, and so I will only use 1 month's data. So do you have any comments or questions regarding the data visualization part? You can type it in the chat room or shout out. I strongly recommend you to use Tableau. You can use a student version for free for 1 year. It is often used by business intelligence. So I will go back to my PowerPoint. Yeah, like the Tableau.gl is developed by Uber Engineering. It's very helpful to investigate the trip patterns. After doing the data visualization, let's move on to the research background. Also, I read a news in New York Times. It is reported that there was a surge in biking to avoid crowded trains in New York City. So that may indicate that people change their traveling behaviors. Also, New York City subway reported ridership, the drop in ridership significantly. This line chart may be an answer, maybe or a summary to your response just now. We can see like people in middle March, people reduce their driving and taking transit and walking. And then in late April, these travel modes gradually recover. In June and July, driving almost approximates the pre-crisis level, while transit still remains at a low level. This is reported by the Apple Mobility using the Apple Maps data. We can take a look at the timeline of the critical events during the COVID-19 pandemic. In early March, the first cases of coronavirus was reported in New York City, and the governor declared a state of emergency in New York State. And then a stay-at-home order was effected. And MTA and Citibank effected launched some programs in response to the coronavirus. In June, phase 1 and phase 2 reopening started. Our direct study focusing on these questions. How have bikeshare and subway use patterns changed during the COVID-19 pandemic? What factors, for example, policy responses like a stay-at-home order, contribute to bikeshare and subway ridership changes? Is there evidence that travelers who previously took the subway are now using bikeshare? Let's move on to the literature review part. I did literature search through the Google Scholar, and I found that scholars have established the relationship of bikeshare ridership and trip patterns with other factors such as weather, land use, and other travel modes. There is a difference in bikeshare subscriber trips and casual user trips. Casual users usually take longer trips than subscribers, and casual users usually take bikes for leisure trips, while subscribers for work trips. Bikeshare can be either a complement or a substitute for public transit trips. Weather has a significant impact on bikeshare and transit. Precipitation, snowfall, wind are negative factors. Temperature is positive, and its effect is within a range. There is a difference in weekday and weekend patterns. Literature compares the impact of weather conditions on bikeshare and subway usage simultaneously. So we fill this gap in our direct study, although we use weather variable as a control variable. I found 2 articles investigating bicycling during the pandemic. One article used an online survey to investigate how people view bicycling, or how their attitudes changed during the pandemic in Sydney, Australia. We can see that people hold positive attitudes toward bicycling, and there are more bikers around the city. A study by European scholars investigated the bike sharing and subway use during the COVID-19 pandemic. They used March 2020, February 2020, and March 2019 data. This paper shows that bike sharing is more resilient than the subway system, with a less significant ridership drop and an increase on each trip's average duration. We extend this study by examining January to June data for 2 years, 2019 and 2020, and we estimate a time series model with the inclusion of weather variable and policy variables. The contribution of our direct study can be summarized as we correlate the impact of weather on bikeshare and subway ridership, although primarily as a control variable. We use a time series analysis to analyze factors influencing bikeshare and subway ridership during the pandemic. To our best knowledge, it is the first time series comparison study of bikeshare and subway use patterns during the pandemic. our next part is data and descriptive analysis. This table shows the data source. We acquire city bike usage from the company and subway usage from MTA. We also got the coronavirus-related data from New York City government. Because I'm dealing with big data, which is millions of records. So I need to do data conversion, which means to convert from millions of records big data to 175 observations small data. Why it is 175 observations? Because we investigate 175 days from January to June in 2019 and 2020, respectively. Below is a screenshot of the data to use in our regression analysis. I also did descriptive analysis. On the left, it shows the city bike daily trip counts in 19 and 20. The blue color is the 19 data, and the orange color is the 20 data. I use a 7-day moving average. So the weekday and weekend patterns can be deleted. We can see that in March, there was a significant drop in city bike ridership, then it gradually bounced back. In late June, it almost reached the pre-crisis level. In comparison, let's take a look at the subway data on the right. In March, there was also a significant drop in subway ridership, almost 90% of reduction. After the end of March, the ridership of subway usage still remained at a very low level, although it gradually increased. From these two charts, we can see that there is a difference in weekday and weekend patterns. Then I divide the city bike trips by user type, subscriber, and casual user. There are more subscribers trips than casual user trips in these 2 years. A very interesting fact is that in the pandemic, the number of casual user trips still increased from January to June, while subscriber trips experienced a significant drop in March. This table shows the number of city bike trips by trip duration in 19 and 20. I split the trips by the trip duration. Shorter trip versus longer trip. The shorter trip means trip duration is less than 30 minutes, and the longer trip means the trip is between 30 and to 60 minutes. The ratio of longer trip versus shorter trips almost doubled in April and May in comparison during the pandemic in comparison to the 19 data. So this suggests that people may shift from other travel modes to bicycling as their primary travel mode, or use that for their walking trips. This chart summarizes the city bike ridership, subway ridership, and the COVID-19 data. In March 20, the stay-at-home order was effected, and at this time, the coronavirus was becoming more severe in New York City, and also New York City subway and bikeshare experienced a significant drop. As the coronavirus was contained in late June and early July, the ridership of these two travel modes gradually increased. So this may indicate there is an association between the COVID-19 pandemic and the ridership. Next, I did regression analysis. Since we use daily time series data, simple ordinary least square models will suffer from serial correlation. And also, we use counts of trips as our dependent variable. And usually, previous scholars use negative binomial model to solve that. But this assume independence of each day. Therefore, we use Price-Winston model to address these issues, and we use the log of the counts of trips to approximate a normal distribution. We estimate Price-Winston model to control for serial correlation, and we estimate 4 models for each year. These include total daily subway trips, total daily bikeshare trips, and trips taken by subscribers and casual users. The control variables include daily weather conditions, dummy variables for weekdays versus weekends and holidays, and the pandemic policy variables. We assume that the 3 key policies, stay-at-home order, phase 1 and phase 2 reopening, have significant impacts on travel behavior. This table is a summary statistic of the dependent variables and the independent variables. This table shows the regression analysis. When summarizing the results, I pay attention to the magnitude and the direction, as well as the significance. We can see that temperature, precipitation, weekday, and stay-at-home order, these 2 factors are significant. And the adjusted square are more than 70% for model 1, and the other models I also explain well. I interpret the regression analysis results reported by data into this simply understandable table on the right. We use weather as a control variable to isolate the impact of COVID-19 policy. Bikeshare is more sensitive to weather. Temperature is a positive factor and precipitation is a negative factor. Snowfall is only significant for city bike in 2020, and wind speed has no effect. For the weekday variable, it is significant for subway in 19 and 20. It is significant for city bike in 19. Bikeshare travel behavior on weekdays and weekends and holidays has changed during the pandemic. For the policy variables, stay-at-home order is highly effective at reducing usage, reducing the ridership in bikeshare and subway significantly. It has a larger impact on city bike ridership. For the reopenings, they have no effect, but we may need July and August data to investigate the impact of reopenings to examine whether it has effect or not. We also estimate models for subscribers and casual user trips. Similarly, temperature, precipitation, weekday and stay-at-home order are significant. Let's look at the table on the right. For weather conditions, temperature and precipitation are significant. They both have a stronger impact on casual user trips than subscriber trips. Snowfall is negative. It is significant for subscriber in 20. And wind speed is also a negative factor for subscriber trips in 19. For the weekday variable, it has impact on subscriber trips in 19, but its impact on subscriber trips in 20 vanished. It is significant in reduction in commute trips in 2020. For the policy variables, stay-at-home order has a negative impact on subscriber trip, but it has no impact on casual user trips. Reopenings have no effect. Further data and should be applied to investigate this. Let's move on to the conclusion and discussion part. Our study has examined the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on Bikeshare subway usage patterns in New York City via data visualization and series modeling. Our analysis suggests that Bikeshare system is more resilient than the subway system. Both of them were severely impacted by the pandemic, and we see their ridership drops. For the subway, it experienced a substantial drop, almost 95%. And for the Bikeshare, it only experienced a 70% reduction relative to the pre-crisis level. City Bike saw an increase in longer trips between 30 to 60 minutes, suggesting that some riders shifting from the subway. After the peak of the pandemic in New York City, the number of city bike trips gradually recovered, even approximating the corresponding level in 2019. In contrast, subway ridership is only at the 50% of its pre-crisis level of the ridership. Our weather variable were used to control for day-to-day variation in ridership. We can see that Bikeshare usage is more sensitive to weather conditions, and casual user trips are affected more by adverse weather conditions. Regarding the pandemic policy variables, stay-at-home order is significant, reducing Bikeshare subway ridership substantially. However, both reopening phases are not significant. Further research is needed to determine how the subway, in particular, recovers its ridership. Bikeshare ridership, on the other hand, is largely back to pre-COVID-19 levels. Our limitation of our study is that we do not know how MTF service reducing affected ridership, because people may need to wait for longer times so they reduce their trips. Also, we don't know how job losses may have led to reductions in commuting trips. Based on the current trend, city bike ridership may continue to grow with the restriction ease. Further data should be applied to investigate that. But we are still uncertain about the future. Everything is changing rapidly. The prediction of the future use patterns of bikeshares and subway is beyond the scope of our study. As abundant data on the transport system and the pandemic impact becomes available, further research can complement our analysis. For example, we need to understand change in other travel modes, such as car sharing and public transit. And we need individual survey data to answer the following two questions with their modal transfer from subway riders to bikeshare users. Does bikesharing complement or substitute subway usage? Case studies in other cities with comprehensive bikeshare systems, such as Washington, D.C., Boston, Seattle, Chicago, may hope to depict a larger picture. Our direct study has significant policy implications. Bikeshare systems add to the resiliency of transport systems. Planners should advocate for active transportation and support for bicycling infrastructure during and after the pandemic. We also need guidelines for resilient transport systems with the inclusion of bikeshare systems and other micro-mobility options. Our study has demonstrated the disruption to regular travel habits and the potential for adaptation to new travel habits, which can be a precursor to behavior change. In 1980, New York City witnessed a large and a severe transit strike. People had to take the bicycles out of their closet. This photo was taken on the Brooklyn Bridge, connecting Brooklyn and Manhattan. This was a temporary disruption. In comparison, the pandemic was a longer and more severe disruption for the whole society in all aspects. The devastating pandemic results in a much longer and more severe disruption. So given the unique characteristics of the impact of the pandemic, we raise questions for planners and policymakers. How can we build towards a more resilient transport system? How can future transport systems respond to new travel behaviors? This is the end of my direct study talk. Here is the reference. Also, my final words are that welcome to Bloustein MPI program. Probably you have seen my advertisement on the Facebook, and I was featured on the MPI program promotion. I think public informatics is very powerful. It can inform decision makers with evidence-based findings. And in this program, you will learn statistics, programming, data analytics, visualization, and management, all kinds of things related to informatics. I use the following software in the direct study. I use ArcGIS Pro to map the docking stations. I use R and Excel for data clean and data management. I use Tableau to produce interactive data visualization dashboards. I use data to conduct the press-window regression analysis. Thank you all for listening.
Great, thank you very much.
Any comments or questions?
A lot of good work. Any comments or questions? Just jump in. I think we got a small enough group.
You can tap it or shout out. Feel free to provide any comments or raise any questions.
That was really impressive.
I was going to ask, do you think like a similar trend would be seen with New Jersey Transit?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah, I would imagine. Is there readily available data for New Jersey Transit, or?
There is New Jersey Transit has seen a big drop in ridership, and a slight, they're slowly increasing a little bit. I don't think the data is as readily available as for the MTA that I'm aware of. They do have estimates at stations and such, but their data, they don't have turnstiles, so they're not collecting this like the MTA, the subways are. The other mode that's dropped tremendously is the bus service to New York City, the private coaches. Some of them are shutting down. We tend not to think about that mode, but it's a major, over 100,000 trips, people per day or something like that into New York City from New Jersey.
I wonder if there is any data for paratransit.
I don't know. Some of the other staff at VTC may know. They clearly must have call records of whether it's available or not. I don't know.
Have you guys think about like fusion social demographic information to the data set, because currently there's not much such variables?
So I always emphasize when we're talking about big data, which is what this is. It's a large data set. It's collected, it's updated monthly, not in real time, but at least the Bikeshare data. That's the missing piece. We don't know anything about the demographics of the people. And so there's still a lot of value in doing survey work to collect that sort of information and link it in some ways to some of the big data if possible.